Am legendären Yukon wurden in den letzten Jahren ein völlig neuer Goldtrend gefunden. Seitdem explodieren in dieser Region regelrecht die Explorationsausgaben. Bei mir ist jetzt Freeman, er ist CEO und Präsident von Ethos Capital. In diesem Gebiet hat er sich ein wahres Filetstück gesichert. What do you like about the Yukon?
Well, the Yukon over the years has been very much underexplored, and largely because gold prices have been prohibitive. You know, gold at $300-400 an ounce didn't make a lot of sense for the average explorer to go to the Yukon, not only because the grades had to be substantial, but also because the period of time you can work up in the Yukon is pretty short. The actual season at best is 5 months a year.
Okay. So before going into details, let's talk about the management of the company. Would you give us a sense of the history of the management?
Certainly. The company has 7 directors, of which only 2 are management. This is myself and Peter Mordaunt. Peter Mordaunt and I worked recently on an acquisition of a company we spearheaded called Pediment Gold, and that was sold to Argonaut. Was sold for about $160 million, and it was an extremely good investment for the people who were the shareholders of Pediment. I think Pediment now is trading at about, in Pediment currency, at about $6 a share. So they've done very, very well by it. So we've got a lot of people involved in the company. There's about, we estimate, $1 billion in M&A activity within the group of management within the company.
Okay. So it was a good deal for the investors in Pediment.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes. It took a while. It wasn't easy, but you know, we fought a lot of ups and downs in the markets. But at the end of the day, the deposit spoke for itself.
Okay.
So we're pretty happy
Perfect.
with it. Yeah.
So now let's get back to Ethos Capital.
Sure.
Could you please give us a brief summary of your Yukon project?
Yeah, absolutely. The company acquired about 1.5 years ago a suite of properties from a prospector in the Yukon named Sean Ryan. Sean Ryan, I guess, how do I sum him up? He's probably been the driving force for the resurgence of the Yukon and has developed probably 60% of the properties up there. In other words, he is, I think, almost 75% of the royalties in the Yukon would go to Sean Ryan. So Sean has had about an 8 or 10 year history up there and has been involved in the underworld discovery, Kaminak discovery, and of course what we're doing in Ethos, and a variety of other companies. Sean Ryan had got to the Yukon probably 15 years ago, and it's been the last 10 years that he started to look at science relative to source gold in the Yukon. On our website, which is ethoscapitalcorp.com, there is a picture of a tray of different, well, there would be little pans in a box, yay big, and in these pans are about 75 or 80. They're different little pans with little pieces of gold in them, and they come from the different creeks in the Yukon. And what that really is speaking to is that while a lot of the people over the years, going back to the late 1800s of the original gold rush, people thought most of the gold had disappeared into the white gravels. Really what's happened and what's being identified now is that because of the expense of working in the Yukon and because of how much it costs to work up there, nobody spent enough time up there looking at science and identifying what it was you needed to recognize to be able to get a proper picture of what's going on with the gold.
Yeah.
It turns out there's a number of sources of gold in the Yukon, and we think that the Coffee Creek structure, which is where the Ethos properties are, is one of the more prolific gold sources. And so Kaminak has had a lot of success on this structure. That company's rumored to have 2.5 to 3 million ounces currently, and I suspect it'll get bigger. We haven't done any drilling currently, but we've done about 35,000 samples last year's soils. And this is what's needed to happen up there, and this is what's given everybody the impetus to go back. It paints a very, very good scientific picture of what the ground is like, and that's what's changed in the Yukon over the years. And of course, in the higher gold price helps, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you told me that you have done collecting samples at the moment. So do you plan a drill program in
this
2012?
Yeah, this year we've announced just recently a $7.5 million drill program. Our exploration budget. consists of approximately 100 drill holes, of which 40 will be reverse circulation, and the intent is to get in there as early as possible. Reverse circulation uses very little water, and so we can get in there and start to drill quite quickly under the trenches. We trenched 22 kilometers of trenches. One of the trenches we came up with this year is the best trench to ever come out of the White Gold district in the Klondike. So we want to test under the trenches to see if the gold comes from where the trench, or if the gold is below where the trench was dug. So we have a plan to test with RC quite quickly, drill 40 holes by, let's say, the end of June. At that point, we'll be able to start testing the RC cuttings, and we'll be able to then go in after with a core drill rig, which uses a lot more water, but of course it won't be so cold by this time, and then twin and test everything that we've done with the RC rig.
Okay. So what's the goal of the company? Do you like to go in production with this project, or do you like to sell the project?
Well, production is a different game altogether.
Okay.
We're not production people. I mean, there are people on our board that are involved in companies, and Godfrey Walton is a production engineer. He works with Endeavour Silver. So we do have production people around the company, and the reason we have them is not because we want to be a production company, but when you find a gold mine, what people don't really realize, certainly not many people anyway, is that to find a gold mine is one thing. I mean, there's no shortages to the gold mines and silver mines, copper, molybdenum. There's lots of them in the world. But the big question is, can they be mined, and can they be mined profitably? And that's where engineering comes in, because you have to understand slope, pit slope, you have to understand metallurgy. There's a variety of things that you need to understand, and that's an issue of engineering. What we do is we like the early phase kick in the company. The discovery, like Impediment, was when we hit the discovery hole. The stock did very, very well, and it allowed us to raise a lot of money for the company. Ethos has been the same. We this year, or last season, spent the time sampling 35,000 samples, and we've come up with some tremendous targets. It's our expectation, if we can drill successfully this summer, then we should be able to raise the stock price, if at least raise some more money for the company, and that'll give the company an additional longevity, which allows us to finish what we started, and that's looking for gold.
Let's talk about the financial situation. How much cash do you have?
Company's just under 14 million currently. The budgets this year is about 7.3 million. So we're pretty comfortable with our cash position. We would probably need to raise more if we finish this program. We think we'd need to raise probably an additional 10 to 12 million to get us through the next year and a half, 2 years. Even with the 7 million that would be left, or the 6 million that would be left after this program. But the way the drill program is being designed is being designed to drill at first with the RC rig. That would take us to about an expenditure of 2 million. And within that first couple of months, we can make some decisions as to how to pull forward from there, and would either allow the company to survive off only spending a couple of $1 million this summer, and then making some decisions. The core rig drilling is much more expensive, so that we can make some decisions at that point.
Okay, excellent. Is the investment community paying attention yet?
I think so. We've been around a long time. And we've got a pretty good track record of letting the public know what we're doing. Pediment was a big success, and Ethos stock trades quite reasonably too.
Okay, sum it up for investors. Why should we buy Ethos Capital?
Well, I think the real reason why I think Ethos is a good purchase is the area where we are working. Sum it up very simply, if you look at what's gone on in Alaska, which is not far away from where we are, and you look at what's gone on in the Yukon over the last 20 or 30 years, Alaska has developed a number of very large gold deposits. There's a border, but Mother Nature doesn't know the borders there. And I think because the Yukon has had such a lack of capital spending, I think that the same types of deposits within the Tintina Gold Belt, which goes from all through the Yukon right into Alaska, I think the opportunity for some very big elephant type size deposits are available, and they just need to be worked on. The money needs to be expended. I think we're going to see deposits very similar to like the Casino deposit that Western Copper has. This is 8 million ounces of gold and 4.5 billion pounds of copper. I think those things will be found in a Titina gold belt on the Yukon side. It's going to take some time, it's going to take capital investment, and it's going to take people that have a commitment to that type of mining. And I think if you look back on our history, there are many companies that you've had insiders who have had that commitment to the success of their company. And these are companies that have turned out to be fantastic companies over the years. And I think Ethos can be one of those companies based on the people we have working for us.
Gary, many thanks for the interview.
Thank you very much. It's nice to talk to you.